Thank you for joining us. David Hertel in for Elias. Hope your Canada Day is going smoothly, especially if you're moving or working. The National Post columnist and director of the Center for Responsible Drug Policy, Adam Zivo, is a regular voice on the Elias Macko Show. He joins us often to talk about safe drug use policies across Canada, but today he joins us to tell us his unique story of love, which saw him move from Canada all the way to Ukraine. Adam, always a pleasure.
Oh, thanks for having me back on the show, and thanks for giving me an opportunity to talk about this story.
Yeah, because we were talking about that actually last week, preparing an interview. You'd come on because you were discussing another type of topic. I mean, the status of the LGBTQ movement in Canada, which was a very interesting take on that situation. Before I get into this great story, this great personal story of yours, I got to ask you what you thought about the situation during the Pride Parade yesterday in Toronto, which was interrupted. It was actually stopped during the actual parade by pro-Palestinian protesters. What were your thoughts on that?
I thought that demonstration was deeply inappropriate. If they felt so strongly that there should be more visibility for Palestinians in the Pride Parade, they could have just marched alongside everyone else and carried Palestinian flags. They didn't have to ruin the rest of the festival to make a point. And look, I'm sympathetic to both Israelis and Palestinians. I think that also both sides should have a right to free speech. Mm-hmm. But exercising the speech in this way was just completely out of line.
All right, thank you. Clear enough. I mean, because from my perspective, wasn't originally Pride parades a form of protest? Isn't that how Pride parades were born in the first place?
To a certain extent, yes. But I mean, you also have to keep in mind that a Pride parade is for LGBTQ issues, mm-hmm. and they have tried to appropriate this parade for an entirely different political cause, one which is a little bit suspect in this context, because many of the people who advocate for Palestinian rights go beyond reasonable advocacy for Palestinians and go into the romanticization of Hamas. And I was in Israel about a month ago interviewing, queer Israelis, and they were perplexed by that because they generally, were very pro-Palestinian. They said the Palestinians should have self-determination. But when they saw Western activists romanticize Hamas and advocate for the dissolution of Israel, which would necessarily mean the ethnic cleansing of millions of Jews, they thought, what is going on? And so these particular protesters, seem to me to trend towards the more extreme side. So I don't support them.
All right, moving on to your story, because on a holiday like today, I always like to set aside a few moments for actual good news stories. So on top of your reporting on drug policy issues and LGBTQ issues, you have reported on the situation in Ukraine, correct?
Yes, I've lived there for about 2 years.
And so back in 2022, you actually were in Ukraine to report. So tell me what happened.
Well, so essentially, I quit my day job because I wanted to do something more substantial, morally speaking. Mm-hmm. And I went on a 2-month reporting trip throughout Ukraine. And I went to Lviv, then Kyiv, then Kharkiv, where I got shells. And then at the end of that trip, being burnt out and, to be honest, a tiny bit traumatized, I went to Odessa. And Odessa was relatively safe at that time. And the front line was 2 hours to the east in a city called Mykolaiv. And Mykolaiv was being shelled all the time. I wanted to go there so I could do some work there. But I wasn't able to get permission because I only had a bulletproof vest and not a helmet. Mm-hmm. So I basically had a week off. And I ended up going on a dating app to try to find a local Ukrainian to show me around the city. And so, I saw this person who was incredibly beautiful. And I thought at first he was a catfish. and then he actually responded to me. And I thought, well, what's his deal? What's the catch? Is he really dumb? Does he kill puppies or something? I was perplexed. Right. And then we met, and his name is Leo. And what was supposed to be a 1-hour coffee date turned out into an all-day walk throughout the seaside. We were immediately smitten with each other. We spent every day together in my final week in Odessa. Mm-hmm. It was very much like Call Me By Your Name, the film. And at the end of it, I remember telling him, I said, I've cherished every moment I've had with you, and I want to come back to Ukraine, but I can't guarantee that. I can guarantee I can make an effort, but I can't guarantee if I will be back.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, don't wait for me because I don't want to disappoint you. I don't want to give you a promise that I can't keep. And then lo and behold, I basically moved to Ukraine 6 weeks later.
Wow. So you moving, I mean, this is beautiful. I mean, this is about love conquering all, but you're literally moving to a war zone.
Yeah, I mean, like Odessa is different. It's
Okay.
Ukraine. There's two forms of Ukraine at this point. There's Ukraine on the front lines, where if you're in artillery range, then that's really awful and people die all the time. Whereas the cities farther away from the front line, the everyday life there is more like Israel during a hot period. So, I mean, the economy is functioning. You can go to restaurants, you can go to cafes, you can even go to the opera. But then every once in a while, a missile or a drone will explode in the city. More recently, it's gotten more difficult because once they started hitting the energy infrastructure, then there were these incessant blackouts, which ended about a year ago, but then have recently returned because of renewed attacks on the energy infrastructure. So I spent the winter of 2022, 2023 with Leo, living together, and we just had no power, but we managed to make it work as a couple, and actually, in a sense, sometimes even made it romantic.
And so just remind me, is Odessa under Russian control or under Ukrainian control?
It's under Ukrainian control.
Okay.
So it's the third largest city. It's on the southwest part of Ukraine, on the seaside. So it's an important port city, and it's one of the main trophies that Putin wants because it has a very beautiful reputation in this region. It used to be the place where Russian nobility would spend their summers. There's poetry written about it. So it's a famous city, and it's one that Putin very much wants to annex.
So I understand also you're going through Canada's fantastic immigration process.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's been 2 years,
Yeah.
so I'm currently trying to sponsor him for PR.
Yeah.
I mean, because I love him. He's my sunlight and my water. And obviously it's a bit difficult because we're gay and we can't get married in Ukraine. And there are ways to get married online. There's a special loophole that allows you to get married via Zoom with a Utah-based official. And it's valid under American law, but that kind of system is not valid for immigration because it is associated with marriage fraud, which is very understandable. So we're going through a third route where essentially if you can prove that there's a legitimate reason why you can't get married, you can just sponsor someone as a conjugal partner. So, we'll see if he can come. And as of now, men of fighting age can't leave Ukraine. That policy has been in effect for about 2 years. We don't know when it's going to change. But when that does change, the idea is for him to come here and for us to marry.
Well, Adam, I really want to thank you for sharing your personal story. It's always nice to have some good news and to show that, there is hope after all. This love still exists in this world. So thank you so much.
Oh, thanks for having me on the show.
All right, take care. Adam Zivo, National Post columnist and the director of the Center for Responsible Drug Policy.